Hello and welcome to the Celtic Way sit down special. I'm Aidan Macdonald and today I'm joined by Tony Haggerty. Tony, how are you?
I'm very well, Aidan, yourself?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. I'm good. Today, as people have probably seen by the title, we're going to be basically going through Celtic squad depth and discussing exactly what positions we think the club need to do a bit of work in the transfer window, maybe some positions that we feel they could get rid of players, etc. And whether or not Brendan Rodgers will, as the title says, splash the cash, as referred to the rumoured 30 to 40 million transfer budget. So for viewers watching on YouTube, I've just put up the sort of squad depth graph that people I'm sure have seen before on the channel. Just sort of breaking down each position. So we didn't want to include every single player and also guys that we didn't think were really going to have any chance of being involved. So there's no Albion Ayeti on here, no Sorrow. I believe there's only a couple of players that are included that have returned from loan spells. There's no Liam Scales either. So just as a wee bit of sort of housekeeping before we get started. So Tony, just before we actually go into each individual position, how do you think that looks as a whole? Do you think the squad needs a wee bit of TLC over the summer?
Oh, without a doubt. You look at that and there's this kind of myth built up in your head that we're get tremendous squad depth, isn't there? You kind of thought that during the whole Ange Postecoglou era, but looking at that and looking at some of those players, you think, there's some surgery required there, isn't there? Now, don't get me wrong, they're the domestic treble holders, world record 8th domestic treble, and that squad's good enough to go out and compete again this season, but I still think replenishing it and constantly evolving will give you even more and greater success. I'm sure Brendan Rodgers will want to put his stamp and his feel across the team. I think everybody wants to see what likes of Marco Tilio and Odin Thiago home will bring. There are the two newcomers that are inserted into that graphic, but I think lots of people want more, don't they? I don't read too much into the 30 million war chest or 40 million, whatever Celtic will spend, what they spend. But I think looking at that, just as a graphic on it, showing you Celtic need some players, don't they?
Yeah, I think undoubtedly there's going to be movement with the squad this summer. We've already seen guys like Jota leave. Obviously, the manager himself also moved on, and Ange Postecoglou. There's been a new gaffer in Brendan Rodgers, but I think undoubtedly there will be more players that will move on. Whether or not it's guys that we kind of want to see go that maybe aren't included in that graphic, like Ayeti, like Sorrow, or maybe players that we hope the club could hold on to. We'll have to just wait and see. But I guess the best way for us to start is just go through position by position, Tony, maybe just work away from like the third or fourth kind of option up until the first choice at the moment, or the first choice in our opinion, we should say. Most of it does pick itself. We know Kyogo's first choice, we know Joe Hart's first choice, but there's maybe some areas that are a wee bit up for debate. But I guess if we just begin with the goalkeeping position, Tony, I know obviously you were doing some research before this in terms of contracts, or the contract situations that we know about in terms of what was reported in the media, etc. at the time. So just out of shot there, just because of the subscription advert at the bottom, is Scott Bain. Now, he only played one game last season for Celtic competitively, which we'll not go into too much detail. Away to Hibs, Tony, I know you were there covering it, and it was a difficult evening to say the least for Celtic that night. But yeah, anything you want to just jump in on the game last season?
It wasn't great. Let's put it that way. 4-2 defeat, wasn't it? So we'll leave that one there. We'll just consign that. And arguably, up until his rickets, he was having a decent game. That was a real annoying thing about Scott Bain's performance that night. But his rickets sold the jerseys, as they say, and Celtic lost the match. So, but it was a big kind of moment, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a big moment. It was a big moment. Sorry, Tony.
In terms of his contract, he's contracted till 2024, according to the latest transfer market stats. Well, that's where I got that. Now, he supposedly signed a new deal, didn't he?
Yeah, he reportedly did sign, or he was offered a new deal near the end of last season. Round about, I think, when he played that match, either just before it or just after it.
So,
and there was discussions in the media at the time saying he had signed it, but as we were sort of going back through and looking to prep for this podcast, we couldn't actually see any specific
length of contract,
from the club. I mean, obviously, in recent things, the club have announced that Tomoki Iwata signed permanently when there was a bit of speculation about when he was coming back from his loan, but there's not really been anything on Scott Bain. whether or not it was then shelved. I mean, I'm not sure the sort of legalities of that. If you offer somebody a contract, can you then just pull it away after one bad performance in one game, Tony? I don't know, but yeah, the safest way for us to play it at the moment is he's contracted until at least the end of this upcoming
next year.
season.
Yeah, but you look at that, and I think he's just out the picture in the graphic. But I think it's kind of microcosmic of his career. I think he's out the picture at Celtic as well, isn't he? He will be and he will remain a bench warmer, methinks, because he ain't displacing Siegrist if Siegrist still stays. All sorts of rumours about Siegrist moving to Australia to be with a new girlfriend, I believe, something like that. I've sort of read reports about that. But I think the Celtic supporters would like to see Siegrist make an impact this year, wouldn't they? Just for the whole succession planning in terms of who's going to take over from Joe Hart. I think the supporters had high hopes for Siegrist, but he got an injury and then he just seemed to disappear off the radar, didn't he? And then every now and again, Andrew would mention him sporadically in the press conferences on a Friday, and they were like, "All right, he's still around," because he just went to ground, didn't he? And it was always Scott Bain that was on the bench. But I think Joe Hart, we were talking about it the other day, Joe Hart and Matt O'Reilly, well, were the only two that featured in almost every game. I think Joe Hart didn't feature in the Hibs game. That's the only game he missed last season, if memory serves. So Joe Hart being what, 36, is he? 36?
Yeah,
Yeah.
35, 36, Tony.
So, we spoke about it on the pod, myself and Ryan, the other day. We do need succession planning. So if you're asking me, do we need a new goalkeeper? I would say yes to that, but it depends where you think Siegrist's future lies. If it lies away from Celtic Park, then definitely a goalkeeper. And I know Ryan's been banging the Likovic drum for ages and ages and ages, so we'll see. But I think Celtic are very wary of and mindful that the fact that they get their, and I don't mean this pun the way it sounds, but their fingers burned with Vasilis Barkas, shelling out 5 million for him, and it just didn't work out. But I think Ryan wrote about it in the newsletter. That shouldn't put them off signing another foreign goalkeeper, and B, just signing another decent goalkeeper worth their salt. And if you have to have that kind of outlay again on a goalkeeper, this is a time to do it when you're cash rich and you can maybe afford it at this particular moment in time. So I think if the scouting department and the recruitment department are ticking boxes, then I think they would say to Brendan, a goalkeeper's maybe somewhere uppermost in your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, that probably describes the whole goalkeeping situation perfectly, Tony. Siegrist, I think he only played 2 games last season, both of the League Cup matches, the early rounds of the League Cup, I should say. He was pretty impressive, didn't have a lot to do in those games, as it tends to be in the early rounds of the League Cup for Celtic. If things are going well, they usually sort of sail through them. Then after that, there was injuries, and then there was fitness things, and then he just didn't really seem to be involved at all. There was a really large stretch of the season he wasn't even on the bench. I believe when he ended up kind of making the subs bench for the Aberdeen game, the last match of the season, that was one of the first games, it may even been the first game this year, that he was actually included in the match day squad, Tony. So I think there was an injury at one time. Then after that, I don't know if there was maybe an issue with form or confidence or what happened. But I think people, when he signs a backup goalie, fans were relatively happy with that last summer. Obviously did well for Dundee United, just to always actually play quite well against Celtic, with the exception being the game in the Cup up at Tannadice when I think he threw a couple in the net. But outside of that, he was very good last season, and arguably one of the best players probably outside of Celtic and Rangers across the league in Ange Postecoglou's first season.
Yeah, and he looked the part at Ross County when he played in the game in Dingwall, where I think Celtic won 4-1 in the League Cup, and he played really well. And I thought, nice one, that augurs well. And I thought Postecoglou was going to make him the goalkeeper for the League Cup, and I didn't have any fears about that. And then, as you say, he got injured and just didn't feature at all, and it was all kind of mysterious, wasn't it? At one point, we're thinking, where is he? And there was no news, and then I think Postecoglou dropped his name in one Friday, and everyone was like, "All right, good, he's still about. It's there's nothing bad happened type thing, So, and I don't know where this rumor came from that he's thinking of emigrating to Australia. I read it somewhere, but I can't remember where I read it. Got to be
I think
honest.
that was kind of, yeah, there was people were just putting two and two together. I think they're on a lot of things, Tony. I don't know how much sort of
Substance there is to
deep
that, yeah.
substance is the word I'm looking
Yeah.
for. Yes, there was actually to that report. It did seem a wee bit kind of potentially questionable, but obviously we do need to keep an eye on it. But I guess we'll just
Very
need to
left field, wasn't it?
yeah, it would be a bit random, I think, if that was to be the case. You know, he's contracted until I believe it is 2026. So
Yeah.
if he does leave, Celtic will be looking for a decent fee of some sort for him, you would need to believe, Tony. And he might be somebody that comes in and thrives under Brendan Rodgers. We've also discussed at length since he's returned to the club, or since he was actually getting reported, or rumoured, I should say, to be returning to Celtic, the amount of players he improved in that first spell, Stuart Armstrongs, Kieran Tierney's, etc. Maybe Siegrist, who it would be quite a big change given that all those players I mentioned previously were involved under Ronnie Dyler, whereas Siegrist only played 2 games last season. But he could be somebody that Rodgers sort of is able to draw the best out of, and I think it'll be interesting to see how he does.
I think if you're Rodgers, you will want to see what Siegrist can offer, because you'll know that Joe Hart can't go on forever. You know, he'll have been told about the whole Joe Hart playing with the ball at his feet. You know, you know, and the suitability or unsuitability of that with regards to Joe Hart. You know, the kind of moments in games where he's made the Celtic fans uncomfortable and the team uncomfortable, because it's not his forte, but he's a great shot stopper, he's a great influence. You know, he commands the box pretty well, doesn't he? And, you know, so I think he'll be weighing it up and thinking, okay, if Benjamin Siegrist is to become a goalkeeper for Celtic, I'm expecting him to make a big impact this season and really challenge Joe Hart. Not just sit there on the bench and be happy for Joe Hart to play every game. I'm talking about a serious challenge. And if he does do that and does what I think he might do under Brendan, and hopefully Brendan can help improve him and talk to the goalkeeping coach, Steve Woods, and get him up to speed, then I think he might come in and take the goalie gloves from Joe Hart, in the sense that Brendan might want to see what he can do, and also possibly save some money in the process, not having to, you know, a massive outlay on a new goalkeeper if he has somebody there who is confident and willing and can do the job. I think all the Celtic supporters were delighted when Siegrist came in, because that's exactly what the future that they had mapped out from. That he would challenge and he would take that position and make it his own. This not this time last season, but some point in the early stages of last season, it didn't quite materialise. And I'm a big Joe Hart fan. I really like Joe Hart, but I just think there's been moments in games when we highlighted it the other day. We picked out the goal that was conceded against RB Leipzig from the free kick, and Celtic had, after Celtic got themselves back into the game, scored a crucial away goal, and got themselves back in to that group stage match. And then Joe Hart sold the jerseys with the slack pass. And then there's been other times the momentum shifter at Ibrox when Celtic were bossing that half an hour, and then all of a sudden Joe Hart made a slack pass, had to save from Kent, pushed the ball onto the post. Rangers got a lift from that, and they went on to dominate the last 15 minutes. And the next 10 or 15 minutes of the second half, they went 2-1 up in that space of time, didn't they, I believe? So there are kind of one, that's just two that I've highlighted. There'll probably be more, but nearly every other game, Joe Hart gives you a kind of heart scare moment, doesn't he? And it's all to do with that playing the ball out from the back. And I know it's not what he was taught, and not what Ange Postecoglou wants, but I've argued time and time again, nothing wrong with shelling it. If you're under pressure, shell it, and just hold your hands up and say, I didn't feel confident enough to make that pass. I just felt under pressure. I don't think anybody would shout at you for that, would you? But instead, because of what he's taught, and it was alien to his nature, need to play a pass, sometimes put teammates under pressure. And, you in those scenarios and situations, you invite it yourself, don't you? And you don't have to, if you can just, launch it. And it's not ideal, but every now and again, needs must. in those situations, especially if you're a goalkeeper.
Yeah, undoubtedly, Tony. I think you make plenty of good points there. We know about Joe Hart's deficiencies that he struggles with. Brendan Rodgers is going to be a manager who wants his players and his goalkeepers to be comfortable with the ball at their feet. And we know the last time when with Craig Gordon, he did struggle to get that ball out from the back. Sometimes made up for it with being a shot stopper, maybe a better shot stopper. At that time than probably Joe Hart is now for Celtic. I don't think that would be unfair to say. But so the Rodgers is kind of used to having to adapt to maybe a goalkeeper that struggles with what he's wanting to do. I can't help but think unless Seagrass comes through and is phenomenal during the pre-season and the start of the campaign, goalkeeper will be one of the positions that Rodgers does look to strengthen in. Now, does that mean he's going to have to move to the three guys there on that we've mentioned potentially? Hart and Bain both having a year left, they might be targeted as Rodgers to think, well, we can maybe get a small fee for them, and then you bring in a new number one with Seagrass in behind them. Who knows? It's probably something we would have to keep an eye on, but I think that's a position that there could definitely be some movement in. I guess if we, sorry, Tony, you're going to.
No, without a doubt, I totally agree.
Yeah, I would say so for the goalkeeping position anyway. I guess if we just kind of work through this, moving from right to left. Next up, we've got right back. Now, we know Alistair Johnson is the clear first choice. Unfortunately, which is sort of recent news, he's picked up an injury playing for Canada. He's not returned to pre-season currently, reportedly, and he could miss the opening games of the season. We still need to get confirmation on that. I'm sure between now and that Ross County game, Brendan Rodgers will do plenty of press and we'll get a wee bit of confirmation on how actually Alistair Johnson is. But at the moment, we do know that he is injured and he's going to miss at least a bit of pre-season anyway. So if he is going to be out, Tony, for a significant period, hypothetically, then we've also got Anthony Ralston in there, who's been a solid backup. We know how good they did under Ange, particularly that first season. I think maybe might be a wee bit of a step too far for him to now be a number one choice, maybe for a short period of time, but I don't know how I would personally feel about that across a whole campaign. So I guess just a couple of questions here. Firstly, if Alistair Johnson's out for a significant period, let's say 3 months, right, which is just speculation, we don't know that, do you think Celtic would look to bring in a right back in the summer transfer window?
I think they'd be wise to, wouldn't they? I think Anthony Ralston hit a purple patch under Ange, didn't he? He had a renaissance and he didn't let anybody down. But I think there was signs of kind of Anthony Ralston reverting to type, as you would say, near the end of that kind of purple patch, and his deficiencies being exposed again. And I'm not don't have a particular downer on Anthony Ralston. I remember saying at the time I didn't think he would cut it as a Celtic player. He proved me wrong with some of his wonderful and individual performances. That might intrigue Brendan Rodgers to see if he can go to the well and drink from it again. And as you say, for a set period of time, if it's 4 or 5 games, could he trust Ralston to be the right back in that situation? But bearing in mind, you're going to Pittodrie and you're going to Ibrox in those 4 and 5 games, aren't you? Of the season, is that right? Memory serves. You know,
That's right, Tony. Yeah, that's right. They're both matches within the first 5 games.
And they're massive, massive games. Now, you'll be targeting 15 points. I don't care what MD says. So, if needs must, and you have to bring in a suitable right back or a right back who can cope with going to places like Pittodrie and Ibrox and playing in a winning team, then I don't think Celtic would be averse to do it. Not saying I don't trust Ralston. I would go with the manager on this one. He will obviously see him at training and make the judgment call on that. He'll have worked with Ralston before, won't he? So, but I would be more, I would feel more comfortable, Aidan, if we did sign a right back as cover in Johnston's absence that could play in these games. And as I say, it's no slight on Ralston. I just think Celtic need to get off to a flying start. And I just think that someone like Ralston would be exploited as a potential weak link by clubs. And remember, Aberdeen are improving as well. Hibs are improving. Rangers have got more or less a brand new squad of players, haven't they? Don't know how they're going to shape up, but they're certainly fancying their chances, aren't they? So I just wouldn't want any kind of player starting 11 at Celtic to be looked upon as a potential weak link and potentially exploited. And I think if Ralston was to take the field at either Pittodrie or Ibrox, that would well be the case in the minds of the opposition. And I think if Celtic have the chance to strengthen and could get like a stopgap right back who they think could fit the bill, then I would certainly go for it.
Yeah, I would completely agree, Tony. If Johnson's going to be out for a long period of time, a right back would become one of the priority positions from my point of view, along with maybe a goalkeeper. If Johnson's okay and he's going to be available for Ross County, would you then be fine with the two options that we've got at right back there? Or would you think that maybe Celtic should still be looking for someone who's maybe potentially better on Ralston and can push Johnson across the season?
More able deputy than Ralston, possibly, yeah.
Exactly, for Europe, potentially.
Yeah. Without a doubt, you'd have that kind of in mind in Europe, wouldn't you? Because, as Johnson has just shown, that all players are liable to injury or prone to injury at any given time. So I think it's something that Celtic not overly concerned about at this moment in time, but it could become a cause for concern. So what do you do? Do you try and just kind of stave any potential problems further down the line off by bringing in a right back? I mean, Alistair Johnson cemented that position when he's fit. He's a number one. So do you go and get another, as you say, better or able deputy? You're playing a lot of games this season, and with Europe included, and the calibre of opposition in Europe's ratcheted up a notch from your bread and butter of the Scottish Premiership. So I think you could be right. I think that could be a position of interest for Celtic, and if an available right back comes up and it suits the budget and it suits both parties, then you might well see another one of them coming in.
Yeah, so obviously so far in the two positions that we've highlighted, we both kind of agree that there could be a bit of movement there. The right back's maybe more dependent on what happens with Alistair Johnson's injury, but so far there could definitely be some recruitment needed in those two areas. We should clarify as well that the formation we've laid out here for anybody that's listening in podcast form is a 4-2-3-1, which is how Brendan Rodgers used to sort of line up in his first spell at Celtic and how he did for a significant portion of his time at Leicester as well. So obviously you've got the back four, the two central midfielders, a left winger, a right winger, a kind of certain attacking midfielder / a number 10, as it's also known, and then a striker up front. We don't know if he's 100% going to go with this style in his second period as Celtic manager, but we thought it was best to base it off how he lined up the last time and at Leicester rather than looking back to how Ange lined up slightly different. Obviously, he operated with a number 6 in the midfield, and I think it's probably fair to say Brendan Rodgers won't play those exact same tactics. So we thought it was better to just line up with that. So just a wee bit of housekeeping from that perspective. Probably should have touched on that at the start. But anyway, moving on to the rest of this now. So right centre-back position, we've currently got Cameron Carter-Vickers, Stephen Welsh, and we've also put Boston Wall in there as well, who obviously, he made one appearance last season. He came on as a substitute against Morton in the Scottish Cup, either the first round Celtic competed in. I believe it was either the first or second game. So there's 3 players here. Obviously, we know hopefully Carter-Vickers will be okay. He had that operation in May. He missed the sort of last 6 games of the season. It looks like he's going to be fit for that match against Ross County. We still need to get full confirmation on that, but it's looking positive. We know he's a standout. We probably don't need to spend too long talking about how good Cameron Carter-Vickers is, Tony, because I know you and I, Sean and Ryan, spent a good chunk of last season doing that. As you always said in your ratings, very rarely did they actually fall below a 7 or 8, even when Celtic were playing bad at the Bernabeu. He was still thriving. He obviously captained the team for a large period last season when Cal McGregor was injured. He's one of the standout players, and along with your sort of Kyogos, etc., he's somebody that really Celtic don't want to lose at any cost. So there's no doubt if he's fit, he will be playing the right centre-back role, Tony. I think that's fair to say, isn't it?
Yeah, contracted to 2026. He's another one that I think everybody would love to see sign a better and improved deal. But my goodness, they missed him in those last 6 games, Aidan. 10 goals were conceded in those last 6 games. That tells you something, doesn't it? I know Celtic had won the title and people say they weren't playing at full tilt, but they still conceded 10 goals over that 6-game period. 3 at Ibrox and 4 at Easter Road, 2 against St Mirren at home and 1 in the League Cup in the Scottish Cup final against Inverness Caledonian Thistle. So, there's a gaping hole when that man's not there, and there's no guarantee that he's going to be back for Ross County game. It's rumoured and Celtic remain hopeful that he'll make the start of the season. His rehabilitation's ahead of schedule, which is good. But if he's not there, Celtic have got a problem, haven't they?
Yeah, they've got a big problem, Tony, to put it bluntly. If it was for whatever reason, if Carter Vickers was to break down and he was going to be out for a long spell, then, like I mentioned, with Alistair Johnson at right back, it would then become a priority position for Celtic to get somebody in that right centre-back role. We know Carl Starfelt can play there, and he did with Kobayashi and with Awata for periods in that sort of post-split spell of last season. I think it wasn't probably the most successful partnership in those games. I thought Starfelt actually did okay, despite the goals that were getting conceded, but you could see when Carter Vickers wasn't there, it was a struggle at times, and the last game that he played was one of the best. Last game he played last season, was one of the best defensive performances I think I've seen in a Celtic jersey. In that World Cup semi-final where we discussed it at the time, Celtic didn't really play that well. Not terrible, as some people are maybe saying, but not great. And I think Ange admitted that after that match as well. They could have played better. It was all just about getting the job done. But Carter Vickers was an absolute colossus. I mean, some of the clearances and tackles were right up there with really high-level quality players. So fingers crossed they will be fit for the Ross County game.
Yep, fingers crossed he is. But you look at, I don't know, Stephen Welsh is a real conundrum, isn't he? I think Stephen Welsh has had enough time to try and cement a place in that centre of defence, and I don't know, just no manager has really fancied him greatly to make him a mainstay, have they? He's always been kind of stop-start, play a few games, and I'm not, that's no slighting the boy's ability. The boy clearly has some ability, but are you convinced that with him as a mainstay, as a centre-back? I look at Carter Vickers and I think if you're comparing them, then it's not a real comparison, is it? It's Carter Vickers all day. It's Starfelt all day. So I just find that maybe Welsh maybe be advised to go elsewhere, but I get there's a whole Champions League and Scottish contingent of players that you need. So is that figuring in Brendan Rodgers' thoughts as well, that you need a homegrown quota? So you might keep him on board because of that. Got to think of every eventual outcome, haven't you? And Bosun Law, you've only seen in fits and starts, and he's one of these guys who probably looks a stick out in the B team, but when he takes that step up in class to the first team, then that kind of no man's land shows that this no disparity, shows that he might be head and shoulders above what's what's on offer at B team level, but it's a big transition to the first team, isn't it? To cement yourself as a real kind of defender, but he might be one that Brendan Rodgers puts the arm around and tries to nurture and bring on. Same with Welsh too. He might also say to Welsh, right, look, I know you've had chances under other managers, but I'm going to, the whole clean slate thing, see where it goes. But I think every Celtic supporter, to a man and woman, would be comforted by the fact that Cameron Carter-Vickers could make the first game of the season. I think they'd be less comforted by the fact that if he doesn't make it, then you might have to turn to Welsh or Lowell, and you think to yourself, okay, they'll do, but you would be looking at the calendar to see when the American returns to the back of the central pack, wouldn't you?
Absolutely, Tony. I think just to touch on a few of the points you made there, with Stephen Welsh, I think personally, I don't know if he's good enough to be a regular starter for Celtic. And I think if he is going to have a plot to play in the squad, it's going to be as a sort of third or fourth choice centre back. Yep. I know this isn't how transfers always work, but I'm of the opinion that everybody's that coming in should be challenging for your number one spot. Maybe with the exception if you're bringing in like a backup goalkeeper, everybody else should be aiming to be the number one choice. And I think having somebody like Welsh behind Carter Vickers and Starfelt, they're never going to, he's never really going to challenge those two based off what we've seen so far. And then when he comes in, you suddenly start to feel a bit worried about what's going on in the centre defence. He's obviously got 2 years left on his deal. He signed that contract extension just before Ange came in, actually, in the summer of 2021. So it's 2025 his contract runs out. So if Celtic want to get some sort of money for him, you would have to imagine this summer is our best chance to do it. On the flip side, as we always talk about, the quota for homegrown players in the Champions League, I believe it's 8 you need to have in your squad.
Yep.
Now, they don't all need to be players that have came through the Celtic Academy. They can be Scottish players or, they could have been at other Scottish clubs and we signed them. So David Turnbull, for example, does count as that. But I just think that might help him stay at Celtic for another season if he wants to. I mean, he might want to move on and try and play first team football elsewhere. But yeah, I just can't see him being a starting centre half, Tony, and it would worry me if he was to be a starter. In terms of Boston Wall, as you mentioned, we heard good things about him in the B team. He only played one game competitively for the first team so far, so couldn't really judge him on that. I think he was coming on and it was like 5-0 to Celtic against Morton or whatever. It's probably the ideal game for him to get some minutes, but you can't really judge him what was going on. He's currently away with the squad in Portugal for pre-season, so you'd imagine he'll be getting some minutes in these upcoming games in Japan, etc. Might get more of a chance to get a look at him and allow Brendan Rodgers to see. He's obviously signed up, I believe, till... So I just guess it's going to be 2024. So Celtic would need to make a decision either this summer probably or January whether or not you're going to give him a new deal. Maybe even give him a year's extension or something. The sort of original deal that was given to Anthony Ralston when Postecoglou first joined, just to sort of keep him ticking over. We need to wait and see. But I think in that right centre-back position, I'd be looking for another player in there, Tony, potentially, regardless of how fit Carter Vickers is. And I know Starfelt can sort of jump across, but if he moves across, you're then looking for another player anyway. They can then go in the left back position to either challenge Kobayashi or play in behind him in case he gets injured. So I think regardless, without looking too far ahead to the left centre back position, you would need one, potentially even two players in there across the summer transfer window.
Yeah, I mean, regular watchers of the Celtic with Morning Beef will know my thoughts on where we need strength and evolve. I've said the spine of the team, and that's 4: goalkeeper, centre back, centre mid, forward, not to jump too far ahead. So yeah, definitely centre back position for me, probably the right centre back would be the one for me, Aidan. Yeah, definitely that need to bring somebody in who not only would challenge Carter Vickers but would be ready to step in straight away and start the season in the likely event that Carter Vickers doesn't actually make the August the 5th kick-off against Ross County. So if you're going to bring a right centre back in, I'd bring somebody that can just hit the ground running and play straight away. So lots of people will say we should have took up the option to buy Maurice Jens, that kind of thing. He's came and he's gone. So we Celtic kind of now look to other alternatives, and I'm sure they'll have a list of options. Mark Law, I'm sure, will have a list of options that he's presented to Brendan Rodgers. Brendan Rodgers will know himself who's available and who he can get. But I even think at this moment in time, even with Starfelt and Carter Vickers being your two certainties, haven't lost a competitive domestic match at home since they were paired together, I'd still be... That's a priority position, isn't it, for somebody to come in there and challenge. So yeah, I would be looking at least bringing in a right-sided centre-back, possibly even a left-sided centre-back too, depending what way you look at it, but we'll come on to that. But yeah, definitely a right-sided centre-back would give me that crumb of comfort, Aidan, and security blanket that I think we all want going into the start of the season. As I said earlier about the myth of the squad depth, when you kind of analyse it like this and break it down, certainly in the right-sided centre-back position, it's not great, is it?
It's definitely probably not as healthy.
Fragile, maybe I would say the word, yeah.
Yeah, I think fragile is a completely a valid word to use there. And at times we did hear last season, I was probably guilty of saying it as well, how strong the squad was. But
Yeah,
all it takes is a couple of injuries, and it's unlucky that Carter Vickers and Johnson have both got knocks that missed sort of the kind of tail end of last season and potentially might miss the start of this season. That is unlucky, but things like that can always happen, so you've got to be prepared. So far, the three positions we went through, we've kind of came to an agreement that, and even injuries aside, it probably wouldn't be a bad thing if Celtic were to bring in some reinforcements in all three of those roles.
I think if you trusted Welsh, you wouldn't bother, would you? There's clearly a trust issue with Welsh, who's had a lot of chances and just not cemented it and nailed down a permanent place in the squad. So there you go. But left centre back, I think everybody's confident in Starfelt now. I think he gets a bad rap, doesn't he? His
Absolutely,
mistakes
yeah.
get magnified more than any others because sometimes he's looked cumbersome at his feet, but his passing stats I think are actually not bad. Is that right? I'm led to
Yeah,
believe
we know
they're
that the
decent.
fact is he is right footed, Tony getting played out
Yeah,
of position in that role. So that's probably why he kind of maybe labours a wee bit on the ball sometimes. But
yeah,
I think his sort of pass completion is pretty good
yep,
for a player of that in that position. He doesn't give the ball away that often. When his mistakes do come, it seems to be with a bit of a lacking concentration. But I think particularly in that first season under Angie, had a couple of errors. Was it away to AZ Alkmaar? I think he scored their own goal and then
yeah,
struggled in the first game against Hearts. And then after that, I think some spectators kind of had his card marked, but he was absolutely phenomenal. Last year, yeah, it was a stupid foul at Ibrox when he gave away that penalty. Longer term, it didn't cost us anything. And when you even watch that game back, he actually made quite a few important interceptions in that game
yeah.
that prevented other goal scoring opportunities in the sort of post split run, sorry, near the end of last season when Celtic were conceding goals. It might sound weird to say it because he was obviously part of that defence during that period, but Starfield actually did quite well. He was commanding his box quite a lot and he was strong defensively. You could see he was trying to coach Kobayashi through games, which previously it might have been sort of Cameron Carter-Vickers coaching him through games. So it was more of a leadership role. And yeah, I'm more than comfortable with Starfield being the first choice centre back. Of course, if you could have to pick anybody in the world, you would try and improve every position probably, but I think it's definitely not a priority for a first choice
No,
left
certainly.
centre back at the
Yeah.
moment. Same with Carter Vickers as well.
Certainly in the League Cup final, I thought he was. I'm sure I turned to Sean at one point and said he was playing like Franz Beckenbauer. You know what I mean? He was playing like the Kaiser. He was just like, am I watching the same Starfelt? Because he's another one who had a kind of purple patch around about the turn of the year and yeah, I mean I'm quite comfortable. I only ever got on his case once, big time, was when he get sent off against Ross County. I got on his case because he just allowed a big centre forward, an agricultural centre forward, was it Jordan White, to rummel him up, as they say, and he fell for it. And he ended up, he got the whack in the face. And my point at that moment in time, yeah, I know he got whacked in the face, and I know there was blood coming from his nose and his on his shirt and stuff, but that's what happens when you play rough and tumble against a big centre forward. You've got to be, and my point at that time was you've got to be a bit more robust than that. And I think a lot of people thought I was having a go at him. I wasn't actually having a go at him per se. I was having a go at the fact that's the mechanics of football, isn't it? That's the way football works. If you've got somebody who, again, going back to they were targeting as a weak link. So what did they do? They put a big guy on him to, as I've said earlier, rummel him up, and that's exactly what Jordan White did. It was agricultural at best, but it ended up nearly costing Celtic. That was the night Ralston scored the 97th minute winner, so it didn't cost him in the end. But and I just hope, and I'm sure he did. I'm sure lessons were learned that night with Starfelt. Clearly were, because he's come on to a right good football match. And in that kind of situation, I'm quite happy there. Starfelt being my number one, but I think Kobayashi's a good player to challenge him for that. And the thing with Kobayashi is, I think Kobayashi's confidence got destroyed at Ibrox. And he was a kind of scapegoat, wasn't he? He was made a kind of scapegoat for that day, and people saying he wasn't, again, going back to it, wasn't robust enough. He was bullied with the goal that John Souttar scored, stuff like that. I would allow Kobayashi that one blip, in a dead rubber of a Glasgow derby. The league was already won. So if you were going to lose one in that kind of sequence, I would have picked that one. Lessons have been learned, and Kobayashi will certainly know, okay, that was unacceptable that day, but in the grand scheme of things, all it did was, you lost 3 points, but not an important 3 points. All it did was lessen the gap at the top, when the league was done and dusted. So I can accept that from Kobayashi, who probably, well, that was his kind of baptism of fire, wasn't it? That was this is what you're going to expect to, at Ibrox any other time you're there. So, you have to raise your game, bring your A game. Didn't that day, fair enough, these things happen. But I think Kobayashi's an able enough deputy, because up until then he'd been shown bits that I quite liked. I think he can pull a ball down well, he could pass a ball well, spread it about, he looked comfortable. So I just hope that hasn't kind of destroyed his confidence per se, but I think it took a wee dent, didn't it? It was clear to see, and I'm happy with that. I don't think we need a left-sided centre back, because I think we've got two that are very able, and if Starfelt was to get injured, I would be okay with Kobayashi coming in and playing alongside Carter Vickers. We'll still see those two play together, haven't we?
I think they played in one game together, Tony. There was a game, I think it was at home to St Mirren, that
Right,
Carter
okay.
Vickers and Kobayashi, but yeah, they've not had a run of the team
I
together.
run the team, so, but your number 1 and 2 left and right centre back is going to be Carter Vickers and Starfelt. But I think Kobayashi, and again, I think Rodgers is a guy who could maybe improve Kobayashi. Iron out those rough edges, as they say. And so those two, I'm not perturbed about bringing in a left centre back. I'm right centre back definitely, but left centre back, I think we're stocked enough, because Starfelt's excellent, and I think Kobayashi has got the makings of somebody who, will be a player. He just needs to learn from that chastened Ibrox experience and accept that that was unacceptable and it won't happen again.
Absolutely. I mean, Tony, you'll know better than me, but there's a lot better players than Yuki Kobayashi that have struggled at Ibrox and
Yeah.
one-off games and still went on to have successful Celtic careers. So, yeah, I'm of the same opinion as you. I'm quite happy with that left centre back position right now. Obviously, it's hypothetical for every position in this team. If there was to be an injury there, you would then maybe want somebody to move in or somebody to be brought in. Sorry, but at the moment, yeah, I'm fine with that. I guess if we just go over to the left back position now, obviously Greg Taylor's there, Alexandro Barnaby's there. Both men are kind of on significant deals in terms of how long's left. Taylor's deal ends in 2025. Barnaby, who only signed last summer, has got a deal to 2027. So there's not really any worries about contracts or that this summer. Greg Taylor was a standout for Celtic last season. He was phenomenal under Ange Postecoglou. A lot of people be hoping he can continue that form under Brendan Rodgers. Started adding a few goals to his game last season as well, which was good to see. We won't go into how good Greg Taylor is too much, a bit like Carter Vickers. We spent so long last season talking about that, so don't want to tread over old ground, but absolutely no issues with him being number 1, Tony.
Taylor nailed on, stick on, cemented number 1. What I want to see this season is Barnaby challenging him big time. He's had that settling in period, call it what you like. Barnaby has some, I think there's strengths and weaknesses to his game, isn't there? I think the weaknesses being his defending. I think going forward, everybody likes Barnaby, but he needs to be more, his passing's erratic, isn't it? But he showed at Ross County that he can ping one into the net from long range, 20 yarder into the top corner, and seemed to enjoy that. Seemed to enjoy the reception he got from the fans after he finally kind of did something right in his eyes. But yeah, I just want to see Barnaby push Taylor, because I don't think Taylor's hit any kind of comfort zone. He would never say that. But barring injury, he's not coming out of that team, is he? So you need somebody to really, really push you at training every day and say, any slip-ups, I'm in. I'm taking this. And Barnaby got his chances along the season. I think much to the chagrin of the Celtic support whenever Taylor was rotated, let's put it that way. They didn't particularly like it. But, Celtic have a big financial layout on Bernabe, so they don't want to be cutting their losses on that just yet. I think there's lots of things that Bernabe can work upon in his game, and I think the biggest thing he can work upon in his game is just study Greg Taylor, because Greg Taylor was in that situation when he first joined Celtic, wasn't he? And look how it's all flipped around for him. So I think Bernabe's got the perfect role model to say, okay, if I got to be as good as him to get in this team, then I'm going to challenge myself. And I think Brendan Rodgers would challenge him, say, look at him, watch what he does, be him. And if you can be more like Taylor, then you might actually get a chance to make an impact this season more than last season, because again, they'll play a lot of games and there will be kind of squad rotation et al. But I don't think there's a Celtic supporter on planet Earth that hasn't got a great word to say about Greg Taylor. He's just, even in interviews, he's just a cracking wee guy. He's one of these guys who you wish every success to, don't you? He just seems to be like a player's player, and really popular, and even when he comes in to speak to the press guys, the journalists, we enjoy it. He's good value, So, and I just think he's one of these all rounders where people just take to him and take a shine to him. And it took a while; it was a slow burner with the Celtic fans, but once that happened, he's no look back. And it's players like that you say, go and prove to everybody how good you are, and you do not grudge him any success that comes his way, because he's quite a humble wee dude as well, and accepts that he's got a great thing going at Celtic, but he's worked hard for it. Everybody will tell you that he's worked hard for it. Did a deep dive with others the other day about him. Spoke to Scott Gemmell, spoke to Gordon Greer, and I spoke to someone else, Lee Clark, and all of them said that he has worked his socks off to get where he is, and he's reaping the rewards of that now, and nobody's more delighted for him than those guys. So when you're hearing it from the likes of them, then you say to yourself, yep, good on you, Greg Taylor. So yeah, I'm not perturbed about left back, because I want Bernabe to be that deputy, that able deputy, to go and challenge Greg Taylor, and through that challenge, I think Greg Taylor will rise to that and continue to rise.
Yeah, I completely agree, Tony. I think Greg Taylor's been a phenomenal sort of servant to Celtic over the last couple of years. The way fans' opinions have changed on him, I don't think I've quite seen that like a player, and it's all completely down to his own hard work, the way he adapted to that inverted fullback role. It's going to be different under Brendan Rodgers. We know what he liked last time, an overlapping sort of fullback like Kieran Tierney, and it's probably why Greg Taylor maybe struggled a wee bit at the start, because of that role. He wasn't quite able to fulfil it, but he's grown so much as a player. I'm sure he'll give it a right good go. And Rodgers might have seen how good Taylor is coming inside, and maybe he'll adapt his tactics a wee bit to suit that. Bernabe, yeah, I think people are happy with him having another chance this season. He's got to improve in quite a few things, but learning from Greg Taylor probably doesn't get much better on that in terms of a Celtic left back at the moment. I guess if we just move into the midfield now, and we can probably go through the two centre mids here, the two central midfield positions, quite quickly. Also, on the kind of right-hand side, we've got Rio Hatate. There's also a lot of speculation about his future. He does still have 3 years left on his deal. He's probably one of the many that Celtic fans would like to see get signed up on a new contract this summer. Whether or not that will happen is probably been up to... there's been a lot of discussion about that. Then we've obviously got, just underneath him on this graph, Tomoki Iwata, who actually just today, as we're recording this, has announced he's made his permanent transfer to Celtic. Unsure on the exact specifics of that contract. I'd imagine it will follow other Japanese players in that it's at least 4 or 5 years. So, 2026, 2027, yeah.
That deal made compulsory, then that was the clause, wasn't it? Compulsory option to buy.
Compulsory option to buy, yeah, that was just confirmed today. So, as we record this, I sort of imagine that, it'll be the similar length of contract to the other Japanese players here, 4 or 5 years. I think we're both quite happy with those two in the position. Assuming Hatate stays, we should point out, if Hatate leaves, a bit like, I feel I'm repeating myself here, but a bit like the centre back, the right back position and the goalkeeping position, it would become, if there's an injury in there or the player moves on, it'd become absolutely vital that Celtic put a significant outlay into replacing the real Hatate. But if he signs a new contract or even just stays for another year, I think we'd be more than happy with those two, Tony, as the kind of options in the right-hand side of the middle of the park.
Oh, without a doubt. McGregor and Hatate, I mean, McGregor's just untouchable, isn't he? He's just Captain Marvel, Captain Fantastic, call him what you like. Just what a wonderful piece of news this week with him signing a 5-year deal to 2028. Probably going to be a one-club man, by that kind of loan spell, not county early in his career. So good on him. You can wax lyrical. You could take up the whole programme talking about Callum McGregor. Hatate's the same, just a baller that you think so highly of. Celtic supporters love him. Had that week injury, didn't he? And it kind of maybe robbed him of the chance of being the player of the year because he missed some vital games and missed a wee chunk of the season. So, but I think in a lot of people's eyes, he was the player of the year last year in terms of his ability. So, the one that intrigues me in all this, Iwata, we've spoken about. Originally, we thought Iwata was being brought in for the double pivot when Celtic played in Champions League. Next season, this season coming up, that's all been ripped asunder, hasn't it? Because we have a new manager, so we don't. Ange Postecoglou's not there, so.
Well, we think it's been ripped asunder.
Yeah.
Rodgers could change and adapt, but as we were mentioning earlier on, we're just taking this based off the formation he played at and in his last spell at Celtic.
But he is a defensive midfielder, and Celtic's problem last season in the Champions League was a concession of goals. So I think that's a useful tool to have at your armoury. Now, the one who I think will surprise everybody is Odin Thiago Holm. I really do. I think I said at the time that he showed wonderful maturity not to go to the likes of Manchester United or Juventus and not feature. He wanted to play over 100 games in the Norwegian League. And regardless what you think of the standard of the Norwegian League or any other league for that matter, once you amass over 100 games, you're ready to push on to that next level. And that next level in his career, he has picked Celtic. I'm quite excited about Odin Thiago Holm. He's kind of come in under the radar as well a wee bit. No real trumpets, no real fanfare, but we show reel and a highlights reel that you look and you think, there's something there. This could be a hidden gem. And he's tailor-made for the Rodgers treatment, isn't he? He's just tailor-made for Rodgers to put the arm around him and say, listen to me, son, I'll make you a star. And the world's your oyster in 2 or 3 years. But if you come with me in this journey for 2 or 3 years, I'll turn you into the player that you want to be. And I'm excited to see what Rodgers can drag out of Odin Thiago Holm. So I think he could be the one to watch out for in that kind of. And assuming that they all stay and Hatate doesn't leave, we're kind of well stocked there, aren't we? I still maintain that they maybe need a midfielder with some height, stature, and presence in the engine room. So kind of a Victor Wanyama type. We've got some cracking, talented, exciting, skillful footballers, but we lack a bit of height. And I was looking at the other side of the city and the players that they're signing. Common denominator there, Aidan. Lots of height there. Lots of brute force and a bit of strength. That's the way they might be approaching it. So I'd like Celtic to kind of match up with that. Hatate, small guy, runs about the park, great. Iwata's the same. Holm's the same, isn't he? Not so sure about Holm's height. Is he a big guy? Doesn't strike me as being a big guy. So I would.
He's under 6 foot. I'm pretty sure, Tony. I wouldn't say he's a small player to that extent. Not at the same height as somebody like. I don't want to say that I'm trying to make this comparison here. I'm purely just talking about height, but he's not like the same height as somebody like Lionel Messi or anything like that. I don't want to mention that name. People say I'm trying to compare. I'm not. Just height, purely just height. But,
so on the height, on height alone, I would feel more comfortable if Celtic did sign a midfielder, either a defensive midfielder or an central attacking midfielder with height. That's just my thoughts on that. I would feel a bit more comfortable because I think we've got all sorts of skillful players to to play in and around these guys or help, but it depends what do you want. Do you want an extra layer of protection with height, to sit there and dominate a match, or do you want a Wanyama type who could score goals and create and was big and powerful? And I don't know, I think I'm a bit erring on that side, but that's just me.
No, I think that's fair enough, Tony. I mean, we should probably say once again for people listening to this, the way we've laid out the graphic here, the right central midfield on the left, on the right we've got Hatate and Iwata in that column, and then McGregor and Oden Thiago home on the left hand side. If they all stay and they're all fit, I think you're pretty stocked for squad depth in there. You could argue, and this might fall into you kind of want maybe a bit more of a physical player, just sign another central midfielder in there anyway. It's maybe not a priority position like the right centre back or the goalkeeper would be, etc. But once you get all that done, it could be something that Celtic look at, just having somebody else in there. Because even if all four of those players kind of stay and are playing well, you can just pick up knocks. We've seen it with Callum McGregor last season.
Yeah.
And Hatate's also had his injury concern since he came to Celtic. I know a lot of it was fatigue in that first sort of 6 months, but even last season he had spells out. So I reckon having somebody else in there wouldn't be a bad thing. It's just probably not the priority position that other areas of the park are. But yeah, 4 brilliant footballers in there, Tony, from what we've seen. I know we don't know as much about Oden Thiago home, but all the scouting reports have all been really positive. You don't want to watch too many YouTube clips because we know we've been before, but he looks like a really exciting player. And yeah, after he was announced, you actually even seen a lot of fans of kind of other clubs talking about how he's really an exciting player that, they were hoping their club could sign, they've profiled, etc. So, I'm really looking forward to see how he gets on in these upcoming pre-season games. And overall, I'm pretty happy with the depth in that position as well.
I'm excited to see what he'll bring, Oden Thiago home. That's the bottom line, and I think like everything else, I will make my mind up with the 4-eye test, Aidan. So yeah, but I think he's one that could surprise a lot of people. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I'm excited, Tony. I'm excited for him. I guess we'll move on to the right wing position now. So we've got just in order here: Liel Abada, Marco Tilio, obviously the new signing from Melbourne City, and James Forrest. Jota would have been in there, but we'll not go over that too much. We know he's moved on. It is probably worth pointing out that we have Sead Haksabanovic in the left wing column here, but he could also move across and play in the right. He's done it before. So he could be another option there. I just guess, Tony, before I sort of we go on each individual player, do you think, given the fact Jota's moved on, Celtic got a significant fee for him, upwards of 25 million, even with the sort of reported sell on of the profit or the fee, whatever it is for Benfica? I think is Celtic going to be banking at least 18, 19 million from that by the sounds of it. Would you be hoping that there'll be another right winger added there, or just another winger in general? I suppose we could throw it out.
Well, you've been significantly weakened in that position, haven't you? Now, you can turn around and look at it this way. Do you bring in a winger, depending on what way, Ange loved 2 wingers, didn't he? Play with a left winger and a right winger, and I mean focal point up front, striker. Brendan Rodgers likes wingers, but I don't think he's going to play with 2, is he? He'll play with 1 in a central kind of forward, because when he was last here, Scott Sinclair filled that kind of role, didn't he?
Yeah.
And then Paddy Roberts at times, didn't he? But I know the 2 of them played together in the same team, but they weren't functioning as out-and-out wingers, were they? Not to my knowledge.
Not usually, Tony. No, not usually.
Yeah, so the answer to the winger question is, well, Tilio's come in. He's a winger, isn't he? So from what you've seen, and again another one with a decent showreel of highlights. So, but again, the test will be when you see him for yourself in the flesh. But yeah, I mean, you can say Celtic have been significantly weakened there, but you're not. Are you going to get another Jota? You just hope that the scouting department and the recruitment department are all over it and trying to unearth another Jota, but you're hoping that they can unearth one with the same kind of contractual details. You get a try before you buy with an option to buy type thing. That was just one of the best pieces of transfer business Celtic have pulled off in a long, long time, in my opinion. Getting Jota on the try as you buy and then signing him on a permanent deal, but already knowing what the fee was going to be, $6.5 million. So I'm fully aware that there's a kind of gaping hole there, because his contribution in terms of goals and assists both seasons was excellent. Can Tilio step up to the plate? Can Abada, raise his own figures? He blows hot and cold, doesn't he, Abada? Lots of talent there, but lots of speculation about his future. And my thoughts are, if your eyes are if you're eyeing somewhere else at this moment in time, in this juncture, Celtic, when Brendan Rodgers is taking over, then there's the door. Go through it, and we'll wish you all the best. But Abada would command a fee, wouldn't he? A decent enough fee. I mean, I think something between the realms of 10 to 12 million for Abada wouldn't be out with the realms of possibility, would it?
I mean, he's got significant time left on his contract, Abada.
Yeah.
He obviously, I believe he's got it's 2026 his deal ends, so there would be plenty of time. It's just one of those ones. His numbers are very good. I think we know he's got a lot of development to do in terms of his actual overall role as a winner, probably. With Abada, but it'll be interesting to see what happens. I do agree that I think Jota has got to be replaced. It's one of the priority positions for me, regardless of how good Tilio does. If Abada keeps in with his goals, if Forrest, we know with Forrest, it's very rare that he goes through a season without picking up a knock. Not trying to have a go at him there, but you only need to look at recent seasons out, the amount of football he's missed. You can't really rely on him being able to play so many games. At his age as well, I wouldn't expect that to be the case, but Tilio's a bit of an unknown quantity. He's looked positive from the scouting reports. We had Stuart Ross do on him. He looks like a very talented player, but at the end of the day, he's a young player that has a bit of maybe potentially a project signing. Abada, look, he was somebody probably at the end of the season that people would pinpoint as somebody that would definitely be moving on before somebody like Jota, before even maybe Ange at one stage. It was looked at as maybe Liel Abada would be departing the club. Nothing's materialised so far. There's still a long way to go in the transfer window. I would like us to keep him. I think his sort of goals record, his assist record, given you've lost Jota's numbers, I think it's hard to replace both of their stats. But I think right wings, we can probably add that to the list, Tony, along with goalkeeper, right back, and centre back, and potentially central midfield area in terms of players we'd like to come in. But I think that's one of the priority positions right now. Probably the priority if we're hoping that Carter Vickers and Johnson are going to be fit at the start of the season. At that right wing position is probably a priority for bringing someone
in. You can say, I mean, there's a challenge for Tilio, isn't it? Can you be anything like the guy that's just left the building? And I'm not comparing them in terms of monetary value, because that would be stupid. But you're only worth what someone's willing to pay for you. That doesn't diminish your quality as a footballer, does it? Or have any bearing on your quality as a footballer. So Tilio knows he's got big shoes to fill, big boots to fill. But what a challenge that is! And if you're a player and you embrace that challenge, then you just say, right, I know you love Jota, but I'm going to be that man. I would like to be that man. Whether or not you can be that man, it's up to yourself, isn't it? But I'm sure, again, going back to it, Celtic will have a list, won't they? Succession planning, probably aware that Jota might have got itchy feet in the summer there, and clearly did. But the move kind of came left field, didn't it? It just kind of took everybody by surprise, and it was all concluded very quickly. But the minute a player says, I'm interested in that, then writing's on the wall, isn't it? 2 wonderful years with Jota, but that's Celtic's task now, isn't it? Going on earth another one. And if your scouting and recruitment department are right, you will unearth the new Jota, or another player who will play in that same position and contribute in terms of goals and assists and big game and big match performances the way he did. And is it a priority? I wasn't sure at first, but again, after listening to you, but it possibly is. I guess so, yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, because that's a significant weakness, isn't it? Now in the team in that position. So, yeah, I guess he does need replaced, Aidan. Yeah, we'll go with that.
Yeah, I think it's fair enough. particularly for the fee that you got for Jota. I know we don't want to spend too much talking about players that have left, but that definitely plays a part in why I think that should be a priority position for Celtic to replace. Even if all three of those guys stay, I would still be looking to potentially bring somebody in there. There's also discussions about Abada. We don't really know what's going to happen. Forrest, I'd be surprised if he moved on. I'd imagine he'll be here. Now, probably something Brendan Rodgers would like to just have around as well. It's another one that fits the old homegrown quota, Tony. We should probably do a homegrown quota bingo at this point for this video. Mentioned that about 10 times, but yeah, it's an important factor, so it's worth touching on.
And the Abada story's just not going away, is it? So
nah, it's not.
We'll watch that one with interest in the remaining time that we have left in the window, which is quite a while. So
Indeed, plenty of time. I guess we'll move on now to the central attacking midfield position, the number 10 role, whatever you want to call it. For this video, we've got Matt O'Reilly in there, Turnbull, and we've also put Ben Summers in, just to sort of balance out these kind of front three midfield positions. You know, there was 4 on the left wing role that we'll come on to. There was 3 we've just discussed on the right wing. So we want to just add another player in there. Ben Summers, obviously, I think he made his competitive debut against Kilmarnock near the end of the season. He's very exciting B-team talent. I'm sure if people watched him in the game that the Celtic B won at Ibrox and was it the Glasgow Cup? I can't remember. They were sort of blending into one of those tournaments. But anybody that watched that game would have seen how good Ben Summers was. He was phenomenal that day. So I think he would be sort of, I don't think anybody's expecting him to come in and be the number 1 choice or anything, Ben Summers, but he seems an exciting talent. He is contracted until, well, actually, according to this, his contract could be near to be coming up, Tony, for 2023. So you'd imagine Celtic will want to get him on a deal. I have a feeling he might have signed a new deal. Could be wrong on that, but maybe it was a B-team extension he signed. But he seems like an interesting talent, Tony, that you'd imagine Brendan Rodgers will want to work with.
Well, you certainly hope that pathway's there. Again, he ticks the homegrown box, doesn't he? So that's another reason to have him around and keep him. And also, if transfer markets do believe then that was it. They were claiming his contract runs out this summer. So, but I was under the impression he'd signed a new deal too, but need to check that out. But yeah, we're keeping him on board. But looking at that, I mean, Matt O'Reilly's your automatic choice for that 10 role, isn't he? Turnbull, again, whose deal, we've got a year left in his deal. Need to see what will happen with that. But again, I think he's another one that Brendan Rodgers could look forward to working with and turning him into a better footballer, more rounded footballer who can contribute in terms of goals and assists and be the number 10 that Turnbull clearly wants to be and thinks he is, in the kind of number 10 that he was at Motherwell, which is the reason why Celtic signed him. But also you look at that and you think, that's what I was talking about, bringing in somebody with a bit of height and presence who can score goals and get around the park. And I think that's a priority position for me, Aidan. Bringing in somebody creative, a number 10 that can score goals and assist and has a bit of height. And I know Matt O'Reilly's no slouch in all those departments, is he? To be fair to him. But there's always speculation surrounding O'Reilly as well. But I'm working in an ideal world where he stays. But I just think another one coming in who can walk into that team gives you great competition for places. And if Matt O'Reilly's kind of spurred on by that, then if you can improve Matt O'Reilly, which I think Brendan Rodgers will, I made the comparison with James Maddison, what he did with James Maddison. I just feel that Brendan Rodgers could do a similar thing with Matt O'Reilly. Then what a footballer you'll have in your hands. But I still want another one. I still want a big guy in there who can get about that field and, score and assist. So that for me becomes a priority position. And people will point out that Xavi and Iniesta were the big guys and they played in the midfield and they were magic. I get all that. But I'm just talking about in terms of, I look around the Celtic team and I think we've got smaller guys that can play wonderful football. I don't know, it's just a kind of peace of mind for me that we could do with some height in there and some real presence.
Yeah, I think it's worth pointing out, Tony, that Hatate could have been somebody we could have had as an option in there for the number 10 role. We know how good he can be at breaking the lines. Sean always used to speak about it in detail, that he takes a risk in terms of playing a pass. He might give it away, maybe he takes 5 sort of so-called key passes a game. 3 of them might get given away to the opposition, but those other 2 lead to a goal are very good goal-scoring opportunities. He could have been somebody that we included there, but we just thought when we were putting this together that probably O'Reilly, Turnbull would have suited that more than maybe Hatate. Maybe just because of the legs they've got, where compared to Hatate, who can also get about the pitch at a fast pace, he might have suited just being a wee bit. I don't even want to say slightly further back, because this isn't really these 2 central midfield roles that we have on the screen. It's not like either one of them is going to be operating in a number 6 position where they did under Ange. So
yeah,
he could be included in there. I think it's probably be one or the other, Tony. You would either try and get maybe somebody a bit more height, maybe a wee bit more physical, either in the central midfield pockets or actually in the number 10 role. And whatever one you kind of slot in, you could then put Hatate or McGregor further forward as a result of that. So that would kind of cover you maybe, rather than try to sign 2. I don't want to sound like I'm trying to make it Celtic should penny pinch you and get one or the other, but I think that could be what it comes to, where Brendan Rodgers maybe thinks he need a wee bit more depth. And also if anybody moves on, of course. We're kind of trying to do this on the assumption that people stay fit and people don't move on. Where else we think Celtic can improve?
You're also... Haksabanovic could play that 10 role, couldn't he, as well? Has played it before, so it just depends. It's pretty... Players like that are interchangeable too, so that remains to be seen what he does with him.
Yeah, it's probably, and we might disagree on this, but I'd think it's maybe a wee bit like some positions in this team where it'd be nice to maybe get a player either in there, but I don't think I would have it at the same priority levels as a right winger or as a goalkeeper, etc. at the moment. But of course, ideally you can do everything in the transfer window. Never usually works out like that, but ideally that's what happens. And like I say, other players could leave as well. Of course, Hatate's been somebody who's been getting touted with a move away from the club. If that's the case, then you'd imagine we might actually put somebody else in there and then in the number 10 position. So it's definitely one of the more interesting roles to keep an eye on in the team. I guess if we sort of just move on to the second to last one now, we're almost getting there. The left wing position, we've got Aidan Macdonald as the first choice. Haksabanovic is backup, although as you pointed out, Tony, he can play as a 10 or he can play on the right wing. Then we've got Mikey Johnson, who is the only player actually included in this that's part of the loan signings. Part of the players that were out on loan, I should say, sorry. We didn't include Scales or Ayeti or Sorrell, as I mentioned at the start of this podcast, but we chose to include Mikey Johnson for a couple of reasons. He's got a couple of years left on his deal. Brendan Rodgers gave him his debut, the homegrown aspect. I think me and you might be of the kind of opinion that he maybe times bypassed a bit at Celtic, but Brendan Rodgers might see differently. And the fourth player we've got there is Rocco Vata, who I know a lot of people are excited about. Played a couple of games last season, looked interesting, done well for the B team as well. So I think that's the only position we've got here for people that are listening to this podcast form. It's the only position that there's 4 players, because there is plenty of depth there. But as you were saying, Tony Haksabanovic could move around. But I think it's fair to say we don't need anybody in the left wing position.
No.
I think that'd be a fair comment. Unless there was major injuries, that's definitely probably the furthest down the list in terms of priorities. But I mean, what's your thoughts? Would you agree that Maida's probably the first choice, though?
Well, I think Maida's the first choice at this minute in time, but I would want to see Haksabanovic push him all the way, to be fair.
With his new haircut, Tony, it's what we pointed out, the new trim he's got.
With his new haircut. But I think this is a big season for Haksabanovic, in terms of to prove that he's worthy of staying at Celtic. I think there's a talent there. There's not that he's kept it hidden, but there's a player there somewhere itching and bursting to break out. I just think that this is the season where he could really flourish. And I think, again, Brendan Rodgers will be saying to him, look, where do you want to go? Where do you want to take your career with Celtic? What do you want to achieve? Then go and achieve it. And hopefully he can stay injury-free, because I think that was his problem, wasn't it? But he seemed to be great when he was making an impact, coming on for half an hour and he would do something, wouldn't he? And then when he started games, he just flattered to deceive, didn't he? But a lot of that was when he was talking about he was trying to build up his fitness, Well, now he will have had a full pre-season behind him, and I fully expect Haksabanovic to challenge Maida. Maida's the number one, isn't he? So I'm perfectly happy with that. His work rate cannot be questioned, shouldn't be questioned, and he signed a new deal, and that's magic. Really, really delighted with that. So and I just think he's a player that Brendan Rodgers will enjoy working with because he'll give him everything. He's a consummate team player. Mikey Johnson, I know there's a Brendan Rodgers connection, but I just don't see Mikey Johnson featuring for Celtic much, even under the manager that gave him his start. Just think his time has come and gone. And if anything, I think Vata could occupy that Mikey Johnson role. The manager might give him some time this season to make an impact, and all sorts of excitement around Vata. And you hope that pathway's there. But again, Mikey Johnson kind of ticks the homegrown box, or he did tick the homegrown box, didn't he?
Yeah, he does, and I think this is going to be getting changed to the Homegrown Box podcast, Tony, isn't it? Because at times I've mentioned it, but
Yeah,
it's valid. It's a valid
it's a
thing,
valid point. Yeah,
and
so
that it might be that Brendan Rodgers rather has Mikey Johnston in the squad than promoting somebody else as a young player to make up. I mean, I know Scott Robertson, who's since moved on to Fleetwood, was in the Champions League squad last year. I think he actually did get on in one of the games against maybe Leipzig or somebody. Did get brought on as a sub, but the majority of his kind of time spent not even really on the bench for those games, but just being included in the squad. That might be Mikey Johnston's role. He might not want to do that, but I think him and Vata, I don't think they're going to get lots of game time if they stay,
no,
in my opinion, assuming that the two in front of them are fit. But it's definitely a well-stocked position, and the fact you've got two really good options there in Maida and
yeah,
Haksabanovic is sort of testament to Ange and Mark Wall's recruitment over the last couple of seasons. And talking of that recruitment, as we finally get on to the last position of this video, the striker, centre forward role, whatever you want to call it, based off how Brendan Rodgers plays. They've got Kyogo Furuhashi, who recently signed a contract extension, now signed up to 2028, I believe it is, Tony.
yeah,
And
2028.
you've also got O, who signed his 5-year deal as well. Just in January, 5.5-year deal, I think it was, sorry. So you've got 5 years left on his deal. So he signed up to the same time. I think Celtic are pretty well stocked up there, aren't they, Tony? People might say, Kyogo obviously stayed pretty injury free last season. The year before he did struggle, but as we know, he played a pretty much 2 seasons squashed together at that point. I guess we don't really need to probably talk about how good these two players are. I think you and I are big fans of always a bit raw sometimes, and I know he was getting maybe a bit of criticism after missing that chance against Rangers, but I think he's got a lot of positive attributes, and he's maybe just starting to come into things as the season was ending. Getting that double against Aberdeen, you wonder if there maybe had been another 5-6 games, would have went in on and got another 4 or 5 goals, maybe. So I think there's no doubt Kyogo's number one and O's number two, but hopefully, kind of O can challenge him across this season coming up.
Oh yeah, that's what you want. But again, I go back to I would bring in another striker. I think Celtic supporters want a striker who of Champions League quality that will score you goals and win you games at that level. And again, I would have thought that they would be doing their homework on that and their due diligence, and that person could arrive because Celtic have seemingly got oodles of money to spend. So I know that those kind of players cost a lot of money, but I wouldn't be averse to bringing in another striker to challenge those two and say, listen, I'm here, I can do a job. Celtic under O'Neill, they had 3 cracking strikers, didn't they? In Hearts and Sutton and Larson. And it's no surprise that Celtic took major scouts in Europe. Those 3 rotated a lot, didn't they? Larson was the untouchable of that kind of crew, but Sutton and Hartson were kind of had their moments, didn't they? I know Sutton was a wee bit more, how do you say, he could play in a variety of positions, couldn't he? So you could use him that way, but no, I wouldn't be. See, I'm not against bringing in another high quality striker because I think you want the players that you bring in to make that difference, to continue your domestic dominance, granted, but You want him to come in with that bit of stardust that's going to give you, a better chance in Europe, a fighting chance in Europe to either finish in the top 2 in your group or at least get the Europa League spot, the third spot, and because this is the last year you can drop down into the Europa League. So yeah, I think a striker is one of those positions that might be looked upon as, that they might want to bring somebody else in just for, just to challenge those two. And my thoughts on Kyogo Ando, excellent footballers, but two of Celtic's bugbears last year where they conceded too many goals in the Champions League and didn't score enough goals despite creating a lot of chances. The goal conversion rate to chances created rate was pretty poor, wasn't it? And that's
it was not great. It was not great. Celtic's XG was actual a very interesting stat to look at during last season. They should have scored a lot more goals in the Champions League. Once again, I know we don't want to labour over that too much because we discussed it to death, Tony, didn't we? After those games, particularly the Shakhtar games, wondered how Celtic didn't win them comfortable. And as you point out, which you're probably right in saying, I wasn't thinking about when I just opened up talking about this position. Maybe you do need somebody who's a bit more, not even Champions League quality, but maybe just got a wee bit more experience point at that level and maybe a bit more of a poacher element.
Yeah,
I think
that turned out to be the big difference, didn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And it could be that Celtic do look at that as maybe not the biggest priority, but a sort of maybe second tier of positions you want to fill. I think it's also worth pointing out as well the Asian Cup that's happening in January.
Yes.
Kyogo and O, if they keep performing well, along with Maida, along with Hatate if he's still here, if they all keep, potentially Awata and Kobayashi as well, but at least the first four, if they keep performing well, there's a chance they could be away. So that might be something else that Brendan Rodgers thinks. I know I'm probably going to contradict myself because we've had a lot of stuff on the site recently about how Celtic should move away from bringing guys on loan just for the sake of it.
Yeah.
But that might be one position that you bring somebody in for a year just so they're there. And it might be that the most they play is that kind of January, February period during the Asian Cup.
Would Chilio not be away too if he's with Australia?
Yes, that's a very good point. Chilio could be away as well. So Celtic could potentially be down 4, 5, 6 players, which is even more of a reason why getting that kind of Jota replacement in could help in that department as well.
So taking all these elements into consideration, then there are kind of positions you say there that might not strike you at first as being, an upper priority, but in terms of secondary priorities, I think there's quite a few positions here that they might be having a look at and also having their eyes on that Asian Cup tournament, which starts, January next year, isn't it?
January is, yeah. Sean wrote a really good newsletter on it earlier in the year, actually, which I will I'll reshare at some point in the time because that broke down all the specifics of it. It was basically saying that Celtic just need to be careful they don't walk into a disaster's maybe a strong word, but a situation where you're without key players.
Well, half your team, half your team could be, half your starting 11 could be.
And they're well aware that it is in the horizon. So I think Aaron Moy was also discussed in that as well. I know obviously he's since retired, but I think it's important that they do keep an eye on that, and that could be one of the main reasons they sign somebody in the summer. People might say, "Oh, you could just wait till the January," but you want that person being able to integrate into the team. So you've convinced me, Tony, a striker as well.
Yeah, that's what I'm here for. But there you go. I mean, it's all subjective, isn't it? And it's all everybody's support of Celtic will see them thinking different things, Aidan, and who they want to see recruited. You leave it to the hands of the experts, don't you, Mark Law and Brendan Rodgers? You trust them that they'll get it right. Celtic's recruitment since Ange Postecoglou came in has been second to none. You just hope that they can continue with that aggressive kind of policy of getting players in early, getting them tied down in long-term deals, and if they do leave, they leave for plenty. But players that can come in and enhance that team and improve the team and progress you to the levels that Celtic want to reach.
Absolutely, it's all about European progression. I mean, I wrote something about that recently, how Celtic can do that, and part of the reason was making sure that it's an aggressive and effective transfer model that they've operated so far in terms of buying and selling players over the last couple of years, and we hope that won't change under Brendan Rodgers. So I think if we just kind of round this up, Tony, we're basically saying probably 6, potentially 7 players to come in, depending on who stays and depending on injuries. a goalkeeper, regardless of the three that are there, what happens with them, I think we agree there could be an improvement made, particularly for Europe. Right back, if Alistair Johnson is going to be out for a period, it's 100% got to be a priority position for a first choice. But even if he is okay, or he only misses like 1 or 2 games, you might be looking for somebody that can challenge him a bit more. I think the same can be said for the centre back position, the right centre back role, I should say. Sorry.
Yeah.
Law's still coming through. Still need to see what he can do. Stephen Welsh, we don't know if he's going to make it. Carter Vickers is clearly the first choice, but another option in there to challenge him would be good. Left centre back we're fine with. Left back we're fine with. The kind of 2 central midfield roles. If everybody stays, it might be still good to get, and everybody stays injury free as well. It might be still good to try and get somebody with a bit of physicality in there. And obviously, if Hatate was to move on, then becomes a priority position.
Yeah.
Putting a player in there. But that also would probably links in with the central attacking midfield role / the number 10 position. And that O'Reilly's there. Turnbull's only got a year left on his deal. Even if he signs, and you've also got Ben Summers who's an option, it might be that being able to put a more physical player in one of the central midfield positions then allows McGregor or Hatate to move forward. In terms of the left wing position, we're pretty happy with the options there. It's quite stacked. If anything, somebody else might leave out of that. Maida, Haksabanovic, Johnson and Vata. 4, the most likely probably be to move on would be Mikey Johnson. In the right wing role, we've got Abada, Tillio and Forrest. We don't really know what's happening with Abada, but even if he does stay, the fact that Celtic have not long sold Jota for 25 million, we'd say that's probably a priority position to bring in. Obviously, Tete, who was formerly of Shakhtar Donetsk, played under Brendan Rodgers at Leicester, has been rumoured as potentially somebody the club might go for that might fit in that role. And then up front, Kyogo and O, we're both happy with them. They're both signed on long-term deals. But for the Champions League and for the Asian Cup, when there's a high chance both of those players could be away, it might be worth Celtic trying to bring in a player. I think that's me covered it all there, Tony. It's sort of
I think
as
it is.
as I can.
Yes, I think it is. You covered it all succinctly in 5 minutes, and we've spent an hour and a half discussing the rest. But there you have it. No, well, that's certainly our views. Other people's views might differ. I'm sure they will, but that's the beauty of supporting Celtic. That's everybody has their own opinions and ways of supporting the team and ways of thinking how the team can be improved. But hope people have enjoyed that we kind of run through the squad depth or lack of, as we eventually discovered, Aidan. Yeah,
I think that's fair enough, Tony. Guys, as we say, we really enjoyed bringing you this. We're trying to do more of these Celtic wee sit-downs now, breaking down different elements. There's obviously going to be the one that will now be available by the time you're watching this, of Ryan discussing with Tony's sort of top Celtic moments as a journalist, as a fan, which I know Tony enjoyed doing. We're going to try and be doing a wee bit more of these types of videos / podcasts for people that are listening to give different elements just outside of the morning briefing. So if you have enjoyed it, subscribe to the YouTube channel, subscribe on Apple Podcasts. Also, if you're interested and if you've enjoyed what you've seen here, you can subscribe to the Celtic Way website, supporting top quality journalism for the club you all love. You can go to www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe if that interests you. Tony, thanks very much for joining us for this marathon. I know you've been doing a lot of videos over the last few days.
Right.
Thanks very much for that, mate.
I enjoyed it, Aidan. Thanks very much. Take care.
Cheers, guys, and we'll see you all later.